Mountain John and Debbie, fire and ice, pouring gasoline on a campfire. The summer moved on and I slowly faded one goodbye at a time from Kate's world. The East Coast grind was getting to me and I was anxious to travel across the big, beautiful country again. Oh, to see the open road of the West and to smell that smell of the black Kansas dirt that'll grow anything. The open wheat fields and the corn and the mountains and the deserts were all calling my name again. It was time for another major change in my direction. I had played the bars on the East Coast, and I knew they would all want me back, and it was built now. The single-act circus was etched forever in the memories of lots of good people's minds up and down the East Coast. I would have work from then on. I bought a 1972 U.S. Post Office truck from a post office lot in Catonsville, Maryland, for $1,000. Steering wheel on the right, no heater, and lots of rust. I put big mirrors on the sides and 4 big mud and snow tires all the way around, retreads, of course. Kelly Springfield from Cumberland, Maryland. It only went 45 miles an hour, but was solid as a tank. It was as red as Santa's long johns. Its name was the Scallywag. I wanted to leave another Labor Day weekend, leave right after a Labor Day weekend and be in California with Wilson and Cisco by Thanksgiving. 90 days to cross the United States from sea to shining sea. I decided to build the circuit all the way across the country. That would mean auditions and press kits had to be dealt with all the way. I could build this circuit around the world if I wanted. I knew I could do it because right was on my side now. Debbie said she'd go with me. Oh shit, yahoo, amen. We took the Scallywag to the starting gate bar and John Urema helped me build a bed for the truck. We built shelves and a space where the singing shirts could hang. I put a Navy issue catalytic heater in the mail tray and a 30-pound propane tank under it on the floor. A food shelf ran from side to side across the whole front next to the ceiling for canned goods and tobacco. I smoked Prince Albert rolling tobacco by then. Debbie and I found an antique feather mattress that covered the bed, and of course, my magic bedroll went on top of that with about 10 of the fluffiest pillows in the world. Debbie decided to lay out a pre-med school 1 year and go with me. Her mother, Sandy, pitched a fit. She told Debbie she was crazy to fall in love with me when I didn't even have a home, and Debbie said, "But Mother, it's parked in your driveway." The Scallywag was ready to sail. Talbot Street Cafe had a going-away party, and so did Hidden Valley Ski Resort. By the time we left, we had $300 or $400 and all the time we needed to get to Springfield, Illinois, to Dr. Cricket's, my brother's, and Kathleen's house on Pickett Street. Dave had some gigs lined up for me in Springfield. We set sail right after Labor Day weekend, right on time. Away we went on our voyage in the Scallywag. Somewhere in Ohio on Interstate 70, she decided to teach me how to play cards. I had never played cards except for slapjack and old maid with my grandmother. While teaching me to play gin, she discovered I held all of my cards backwards and figured out I was as dyslexic as anyone who ever flunked an English class. I had flunked more English and history and biology and math courses than anyone who ever went to school. No one had ever figured that out. Imagine, here I was, with a college degree, in education no less, and couldn't spell or read worth a hoot. The mind to write poetry and songs and could not read. What the hell was wrong with our schools? They had convinced me I was a slow learner. Well, the hell with them all. I even read the highway signs backwards. I didn't need a map anyway. I knew where I was going. Debbie figured that out because she is a genius, and she really is. That's one reason she was always mad at me. She knew what I was going to do before I did it. We went on to Springfield, Illinois, to Brother Dave and Kathleen's, and I hadn't seen them since Chimney Rock in Vermont. All the problems between us because of his and Gypsy Lady's situation were discussed and laughed about in our reunion on Pickett Street with my angel on my shoulder, Debbie. Was a great time indeed. I sang and Dave played harmonica, and the boys beat on pots and pans, and Kathleen made sugar cookies and analyzed us all. We had a gig at a new place owned by a dear friend named Hawks. The new place was called No Baloney. We got so drunk that before the show ended, Brother Dave disappeared. I didn't know it, but he had gone out and crawled into his old Dodge van and covered up with an old sleeping bag. Well, when I finished the show, Hawks and I and Bill and I loaded the PA system in on top of him. We couldn't find him anywhere. I drove the van and Debbie drove the scallywag, and we went back to Dave's house. We had no idea that Dave was under all of the equipment passed out. Kathleen made food, and we waited for word from somewhere about Dave, and about 5:30 in the morning we heard a noise and looked up to see Dave coming through the door. Oh, yeah. I asked, "Where have you been?" And he said, "Under the equipment." We all laughed and adjourned to bed. When Debbie and I left Springfield, we had $600 or $700 and some great pot for the road. Everyone loved Debbie, and we had a ball with all of my relatives in Springfield. We headed west for Oklahoma. Somewhere in Missouri, Debbie saw a giraffe in a pickup truck, and I didn't. To this day, I tease her about seeing things. I think she partook of too much herb that day. We kept going from roadside park to roadside park until we made it to Bartlesville, Oklahoma, my hometown. We stayed at my high school sweetheart's mother and dad's house, Jack and Dottie Dillon. It was like old home week for me, and I sang and everyone had a wonderful time. Debbie loved the Dillons, and the Dillons loved her, and Dottie, Kathy's mom, had the coffee on when we got there, as usual. Even as a high school kid, the coffee was on at Dorothy Jane Dillon's house for all the kids who needed to sit and talk with Dottie and Jack. Those two people heard all of the problems of about every kid in town. You could say anything to them, and they never told your folks. I still love them, and I know when I get to heaven, the coffee pot will be on, and Dottie will be ready to hear another Mountain John song. She died a few years back, and the love of my high school days died soon after. And then Jack died. I will never forgive her for that, but I know Kathy and Dottie and Jack are watching out for me. I talk to them all the time. Captain Jack taught me how to talk to the spirit world, and believe me when I say that, my dad and all of my on the other side loved ones are fine and well and happy and waiting for the gathering to happen. And brother, it will be the best party any of us will ever attend. May the circle be unbroken as we sing in the garden under the shadow of the old rugged cross. We moved on after a few days in Bartlesville. We moseyed along the blue highways across the Oklahoma Territory from town to town. We stayed for a few days in Oklahoma City with some old friends and did some important work on the scallywag. We crossed the Panhandle into New Mexico.